"Marry my deaf son then," the millionaire shouted, and the entire restaurant burst into laughter at the humiliated waitress. Little did he know, he had just awoken the wrong person. The clatter of cutlery against fine china echoed through the main hall of the Pinnacle View, one of the city's most exclusive dining establishments. Maylin skillfully balanced 3 plates on her left arm while gripping a bottle of Argentinian wine in her right, weaving between tables with the practiced ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. No one looked at her directly. To the wealthy patrons who frequented the place, she was just more furniture, invisible scenery. "Hey, move your kiasu self, important people coming through. Why you stand there like a patung?" The gruff voice boomed down the service corridor. Maylin barely had time to react before a sharp shove nearly sent her sprawling, causing the tray of crystal glasses to wobble dangerously in her hands. "Sorry, Sia," she mumbled automatically, lowering her head as she stepped aside to let the man and his entourage pass. It was always like this. Waitresses like her were obstacles, not people. Mr. Tan, the restaurant manager, appeared at her side, his face tight. "Maylin, for goodness sake, pay attention." That was Mr. Heng, the hotel chain owner. "If he complains about you, we're finished." "It was an accident, Mr. Tan. I don't care about your excuses. You know we can't afford to lose customers like that, walao, eh? Go to the kitchen, organize the serving trays, and come back quick. We have a full night ahead." Maylin nodded, heading to the kitchen while firmly clutching the glasses she had almost dropped. Her arms ached, her legs begged for rest, but she couldn't complain. She couldn't afford to complain. Not when she had overdue bills, not when the rent was due next week, not when she needed that job more than air itself. In the kitchen, Chef Raj didn't even look up when she entered. "Maylin, table 9 has been waiting for the appetizers for 10 minutes. The customer already complained twice." "Bringing them now, chef," she replied, quickly grabbing the plates and heading back to the floor. The Pinnacle View was one of the priciest spots in town, frequented by CEOs, politicians, people who spent in one night what she earned in a whole month. Maylin had worked there for almost a year, always invisible, always quiet, always trying not to make a mistake that could cost her the job. But it hadn't always been this way. There was a time when she had a different life, different dreams, a future that seemed bright. There was a time when she wasn't alone. "Maylin, stop daydreaming, snap out of it and work." Mr. Tan's voice dragged her back to reality. "Table 12 needs more wine, and wipe down table 5. The next customer is already waiting." The hours dragged. Serve, clean, smile politely. Even when treated like nothing, ignore rude remarks. Endure the arrogance of those who had money and thought it gave them the right to be cruel. "Miss, this dish is cold." A middle-aged man complained loudly, snapping his fingers in her direction as if calling a dog. "Don't you know how to do your job? Take it back and bring me a hot one." "Apologies, sir. I'll change it immediately. And learn to work properly." "It can't be that hard to serve hot food." Maylin took the plate, swallowing the humiliation. "It was always like this. Always." "Now what, Liao?" Raj asked irritably when he saw her re-enter. "The customer says it's cold." "It's cold because he spent 15 minutes chatting before eating. But of course, it's our fault, right? Heat it up in the oven fast and take it back." While waiting for the plate to reheat, Maylin leaned against the wall and closed her eyes for a second. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. Waking up every day to work in a place where she was treated as invisible, where every mistake could mean dismissal, where dignity was something she had to leave at the door upon entering. But she couldn't give up. Not when she had a huge hospital debt to pay. Not when the memory of her sister haunted her every night, reminding her of everything she couldn't do, everything she couldn't save. While working, she thought about how she got to this point. Just 3 years ago, she had a completely different life. She was a primary school teacher. She earned little, but she loved what she did. She had a small, cozy flat. And most importantly, she had Jia Hui, her younger sister, the girl with the sweet smile and eyes full of life, despite being born deaf. Their parents had passed away in an accident when Maylin was 18 and Jia Hui just 13. Since then, Maylin had been a mother, sister, friend, and protector. She taught herself sign language using internet videos, books borrowed from the library, any free resource she could find. She spent entire nights practicing, determined to ensure Jia Hui never felt isolated. "You are my voice," Jia Hui used to sign. "You are my bridge to the world." For years, it worked. Jia Hui grew up, attended a special school, made friends, had a talent for drawing, and dreamed of being a graphic designer. By 16, she was already selling illustrations online, earning a small income that filled her with pride. But then came the headaches, then the dizziness, then the fainting spells, bacterial meningitis. The diagnosis came too late. When Jia Hui was hospitalized, the infection had already spread aggressively. Doctors spoke of experimental treatments, imported medication, possibilities that cost fortunes Mei Lin didn't have. She tried everything. She sold her parents' flat, sold the car, even sold the ring her mother had left. She borrowed from loan sharks, accepted money from acquaintances that later turned into unpayable debts. She worked 3 jobs simultaneously, sleeping 2 hours a night. But it wasn't enough. Jia Hui spent 6 weeks in the hospital. 6 weeks of pain, of fading hope, of treatments that didn't work. Mei Lin watched her sister deteriorate day by day, those bright eyes losing their light. "Are you okay?" Mei Lin signed every night, even though she knew the answer. "I'm tired," Jia Hui signed back. So tired. On the last night, Mei Lin was dozing in a chair by the hospital bed when Jia Hui tapped her arm. She opened her eyes to see her sister making weak signs, her hands trembling from weakness. "I love you. Don't cry, you did everything for me." "Don't say that," Mei Lin signed back, tears already falling. "You will get better. Soon we'll go home." "Mei Lin," Jia Hui signed with a sad smile. "Promise me something, anything. Don't let other people feel invisible like I felt so many times. Don't let them be alone, I promise." "But you won't." Jia Hui closed her eyes and didn't open them again. The monitors began to beep. Nurses rushed into the room. Mei Lin was pushed into the hallway, screaming, begging to be let in, to be allowed a proper goodbye, but they wouldn't let her. Jia Hui died at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, alone in that room, unable to hear her sister's last words of comfort, unable to hold the hand of the sister who had been her only family. The debts Mei Lin accumulated amounted to 120,000 pesos, and they saved no one. In the following months, she lost everything. The flat was taken by the bank. Her teaching job was gone because she could no longer function properly. She was late, absent, crying in the middle of lessons. Her friends drifted away, tired of seeing her always sad, always broken. And Mei Lin ended up there, at the pinnacle view, serving rich people who would never know what it was like to watch someone die because you didn't have the money to save them. 3 years had passed since that terrible dawn. 3 years dragging guilt like an invisible chain. 3 years working non-stop to pay off a debt that had saved no one. Every day that passed, she repeated the promise she had made mentally. Don't let other people feel invisible. Don't let them be alone. It was the only thing keeping her going. Mei Lin. The dish. Raj called, pulling her back to the present. She took the reheated plate and returned to the floor, serving it to the customer who didn't even look her in the eyes upon receiving it. He simply picked up his fork and began to eat as if she were a robot programmed to serve him. "Mr. Tan, I need to talk to you." Mei Lin approached the manager when she had a free minute. "Not now, Mei Lin. We're in the middle of peak hour. It's important. It's about the pay. You said I'd get the overtime this month. I said I would try to sort it out. I didn't promise anything. Now get back to work before customers start complaining." Mei Lin bit her lip, feeling tears sting her eyes, but she didn't let any fall. She needed that overtime. She had worked double shifts, covered for sick colleagues, done everything they asked, and now she wouldn't even get that. "Attention, everyone!" Mr. Tan clapped to gather all the servers. "An extremely important reservation has just been confirmed. Mr. David Sia is coming for dinner in 15 minutes. A murmur of apprehension ran through the staff. Everyone knew David Sia, not just for being one of the richest men in the country, but for his reputation of being absolutely cruel. Stories of how he humiliated staff were legendary. Waiters fired for spilling a drop of wine, managers sacked for lukewarm food, entire establishments ruined by negative reviews he posted. "Mei Lin, you will attend his table," Mr. Tan announced. "Me? Why me? Don't you usually make mistakes? At least you usually don't make them. If anyone here can handle him without causing a disaster, it's you." Mei Lin felt her stomach churn. She didn't want to. She didn't want to be near men like David Sia, but she had no choice. "He's coming with his son and foreign investors," Mr. Tan continued. "He wants the main table by the windows. Make sure everything is flawless. If anything goes wrong, it won't just be you losing your job. It'll be all of us." The pressure was crushing. Mei Lin set the table with trembling hands, checking every detail 3 times. Wrinkle-free tablecloth, perfectly positioned glasses, aligned cutlery, artistically folded napkins. Everything had to be perfect. 15 minutes later, the restaurant doors swung open with dramatic force. David Sia entered as if he owned the place, and maybe he could buy the whole establishment if he wished. Tall, with silver hair slicked back, he exuded arrogance in every move. Behind him, a young man walked with hesitant steps, staring at the floor. Mei-Lin immediately recognized him as David's son, Daniel. She had read about him in gossip magazines, the tycoon's deaf son, rarely seen in public, always isolated in photos, with a heartbreakingly sad expression. 3 men in expensive suits entered shortly after, speaking in English amongst themselves. The international investors Mr. Tan had mentioned. Mr. James Morrison, a stern-looking American businessman, Mr. Klaus Becker, a German with a deep voice, and a younger third man who seemed to be an assistant. "Good evening, Mr. Seah," Mr. Tan greeted with a forced smile. "Your table is ready over here, please." David didn't even look at him, simply moving towards the main table, as if it were his duty to be there. Daniel followed silently, still looking at the floor. Mei-Lin approached with the menus, her heart beating faster than usual. "Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Mei-Lin, and I will be taking care of you tonight. May I offer something to drink while you decide?" The investors ordered whiskey, discussing business details in English. David ordered French wine, specifying the exact vintage he wanted. When Mei-Lin turned to Daniel, he looked at her briefly and then averted his gaze. "And for the young master?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His eyes showed frustration, embarrassment. "He doesn't talk," David said with a bitter laugh. "He's deaf. Just bring him water. He won't be able to order anything anyway." The cruelty in David's voice made Mei-Lin shudder. How could a father speak of his own son like that? Daniel lowered his head even further, clearly used to this kind of treatment. "Of course, sir," Mei-Lin replied, forcing a professional tone. But when she looked at Daniel again, she saw something in his eyes that hit her like a punch to the gut. It was the same expression Jiahui used to have, that mixture of loneliness and resignation of someone who felt invisible in their own world. She went to fetch the drinks, trying to control the emotions that were starting to overflow. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall for a moment, breathing deeply. "You okay, Raj asked. "Yes, just need a second," she lied. But she wasn't okay. Seeing Daniel like that had unearthed memories she tried to keep buried, memories of a sweet smiling girl she had loved more than anything in the world. Memories that still stung like an open wound. She returned to the floor with the drinks, serving each person with steady hands, despite the internal, emotional turmoil. The conversation at the table flowed in English, with David talking about multi-million-dollar projects, expanding businesses to Europe. The investors seemed impressed. Daniel remained silent, fiddling with his phone, completely isolated from the surrounding conversation. Then David said, "Morrison, the American investor, I heard your son attends a special school. How are you managing that?" The question landed like a bomb on the table. David stiffened, and Mei-Lin noticed the instant shift in his expression. "My son has his limitations," he replied curtly, "but we are dealing with it in the best way possible." "It must be challenging," commented Klaus Becker, adjusting his spectacles. "Communication is so important in business. I hope he can overcome those barriers." "He won't overcome anything," David said, his voice heavy with bitterness. "Deaf is still deaf. There's no cure, no miracle. You just have to accept it and move on." Daniel looked up from his phone, and Mei-Lin saw the raw pain etched on his face. He had lip-read and understood every cruel word his father had said. "May I take the orders?" Mei-Lin quickly interjected, trying to change the subject. The men placed their orders, all expensive, elaborate dishes. When it came to Daniel's turn, David didn't even wait. "Just bring him a fillet, medium rare. He won't be able to communicate what he wants anyway." "Actually," Mei-Lin said before she could stop herself, "we could ask him directly what he'd like to eat." The silence that fell over the table was sepulchral. David looked at her as if she had just committed a crime. "You'll ask him how?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. "Are you going to guess? Read his mind?" The investors laughed, thinking it was a joke, but there was a tension in the air that signaled danger. "Sir, I just thought maybe what?" David interrupted, raising his voice. "Are you a doctor now? A deafness specialist? Or just another nosy waitress who thinks she knows better than everyone else?" The collective laughter echoed through the restaurant again. Mr. Tan even winced at the situation, but lacked the courage to intervene. Other customers started looking in their direction, curious about the unfolding scene. Mei-Lin felt the blood rush to her face. Other patrons had stopped eating to watch. She could hear whispers, feel the looks of pity or amusement. "Excuse me, sir," she said quietly, lowering her head. "It wasn't my intention." "You know what?" David interrupted her again, now with a malicious smile playing on his lips. "You want to talk to my son so much? Then talk. Talk to my deaf son, and I'll marry him to you." The laughter that erupted at the table was loud and cruel. The investors roared with laughter, finding the situation hilarious. Other customers in the restaurant also started laughing, turning the moment into a public spectacle of humiliation. "I'll give you 1 million Singapore dollars if you manage to have a real conversation with him," David continued, clearly enjoying his own cruelty. "Come on, miss, show me how it's done." Mei Lin lowered her head, red with shame, the entire restaurant laughing at her. Tears started to well up in her eyes, but she held them back with all her might. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. But when she looked up, she didn't look at David, she looked at Daniel, and what she saw destroyed her inside. The young man's eyes were full of tears too, his hands trembling, the expression of someone who had been humiliated thousands of times, and yet the pain never lessened. At that moment, something inside Mei Lin broke. All the barriers she had built to protect her heart, all the memories she had tried to bury, surged up at once. She remembered her sister, the sweet girl who depended on her for everything. The nights they cried together because the world was too cruel to someone different. The promises she had made and failed to keep. And she decided she wouldn't let Daniel suffer alone. Mei Lin took a deep breath, discreetly wiped her eyes, and took a step forward, not towards David, but towards Daniel. And then, in front of the entire restaurant that was still laughing, she raised her hands and began to sign. The laughter died instantly. Daniel's eyes opened wide, completely surprised. His hands, which had been trembling, now moved quickly, responding to her signs. David stopped laughing. His expression changed from amusement to confusion, then to disbelief. "What? What are you doing?" he stammered. But Mei Lin ignored him completely. She continued conversing with Daniel in sign language, her hands moving with natural fluency, as if it were her first language. Daniel responded, and for the first time since entering the restaurant, there was a smile on his face, a genuine smile of someone finally being seen, finally being heard. The investors watched, mouths agape. Other customers had stopped eating to witness this improbable scene. The invisible waitress fluently conversing with the millionaire's deaf son. "He asks if you have the grilled salmon with steamed vegetables," she calmly translated, turning to David. "And he prefers fresh orange juice instead of water." David was paralyzed, mouth open, but no words came out. "How you?" he finally managed to articulate. Mei Lin looked him directly in the eyes for the first time, and there was a strength in that gaze that hadn't been there before. "My sister was deaf," she said, her voice firm despite the emotion. "I learned sign language by myself for her. I spent my whole life conversing with her, caring for her, defending her from people who treated her like she was invisible." The restaurant was in absolute silence now. Every word Mei Lin spoke resonated through the hall with immense weight. "People like you," she continued, without looking away. "People who believe that being different means being less, who humiliate for fun, who forget that there are human beings with feelings behind the limitations you see." David turned red, but not with anger. It was shame, pure shame for being exposed in front of everyone. Daniel was openly crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of finally having someone who saw him as a person. "I'll take your order," Mei Lin said, turning her attention completely to Daniel. "And anything you need during dinner, you can call me." She turned to leave, but Daniel signed frantically. She stopped and looked. He was asking about her sister, wanting to know more. Mei Lin felt her heart clench. It was a pain she hadn't shared with anyone in a long time. "She passed away 3 years ago," Mei Lin signed back, tears finally falling down her face. "But I promised her I would never let anyone feel alone like she felt so many times." Daniel stood up from his chair, and before anyone could react, he hugged Mei Lin. It was the hug of someone who had finally found someone who understood, who saw, who cared. The restaurant remained silent, but now it was a respectful silence, witnesses to a moment none of them would ever forget. When Daniel let go of Mei Lin, he signed more. She smiled through her tears and nodded. "He asks if you can join us for dinner," David translated, his voice coming out low and broken. He had understood the signs, which meant he knew sign language too. Mei Lin looked at Daniel, then at David, and in that moment, she realized there was much more to this story than she imagined. The arrogant millionaire who humiliated his own son knew how to communicate with him, which meant the cruelty wasn't from ignorance, it was from pain. And Mei Lin, the invisible waitress who had just silenced the entire restaurant, was about to uncover secrets that would change everything. The conversation between David and Daniel in sign language continued for several minutes, with the entire restaurant watching in respectful silence. Mei Lin stood by, witnessing something that seemed impossible. A father and son finally communicating after years of self-imposed barriers. But Daniel's expression quickly shifted from emotion to something darker. His hands moved faster and faster with abrupt gestures loaded with years of accumulated resentment. "What is he saying?" Mr. Tan asked quietly, having approached to observe. Mei Lin hesitated, looking at David before answering. He's saying his father never attended any of his school performances, never attended any competitions, never celebrated his birthdays. He treated him like a mistake that needed to be hidden. The confession was devastating. Several people in the restaurant were now openly crying, unable to contain their emotion at the raw, exposed pain. David lowered his head, his hands trembling. When he finally looked up at his son, there was a rupture there that went far beyond the moment. It was the rupture of years of unprocessed pain. "May I speak?" he signed to Daniel. The young man hesitated but finally nodded. David began to sign, and Mei Lin translated for the present, who didn't understand. "My sister was named Elena. She was 5 years younger than me, born deaf, just like you. The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the sound of traffic outside. Our parents wouldn't accept it. They thought it was shameful to have a deaf daughter. They hid her, wouldn't let her go out, wouldn't let her have friends. I was the only one who talked to her, who learned sign language to communicate with her." Daniel watched intently, eyes wide. This story had never been told to him. When she was 16, David continued signing, his expression destroyed. She had a severe depressive episode. She was isolated, alone, hopeless. And I was too focused on my studies, on my ambitions. I didn't realize how much she was suffering. Mei Lin felt her heart clench. The story was painfully familiar. One day I came home, and I found her in the bathroom. She had tried to take her own life. Several people in the restaurant gasped. The pain in David's voice, even conveyed through signs, was palpable. "We managed to save her," he continued, "but she was never the same. She was admitted to a clinic, cycling in and out of crises, and I felt guilty. Guilty for not being present, for not noticing, for failing her." Daniel was crying intensely now, but he didn't interrupt. He needed to hear this. "Years later, when you were born and we discovered you were deaf," David signed, his hands shaking. "I panicked. It had only been 2 years since I lost Elena. The wound was still fresh. Every time I looked at you, I saw Elena. I saw my failure. I was so afraid of failing again that I ended up pushing you away. I thought if I didn't get close, I couldn't hurt you. The logic was devastatingly human and completely wrong at the same time. But I ended up hurting you in an even worse way," David admitted. Now crying too. "I made you feel invisible. I made you feel like you weren't good enough. And that is unforgivable." Daniel stood still for a moment, processing everything. Then, slowly, he signed back. "He's asking what happened to Elena," Mei Lin translated, her voice tight. David closed his eyes, clearly reluctant to answer, but he knew he had to. "She passed away when I was 25. Medical complications related to the medication she was taking. I was on a business trip when it happened. I couldn't even say goodbye." The weight of that confession was overwhelming. It was now clear why David had become so hard, so cruel. 18 years had passed since that loss, but the wound remained open. It was armor built to protect himself from a pain he had never processed. "Mr. Sayer," James Morrison stood up, wiping his eyes. "I think we should reschedule our meeting. Clearly, you need family time." "I agree," Mr. Klaus Becker also stood up. "But before we leave, I want to say something." Everyone looked at him. "We build businesses, we make fortunes, we conquer success," the man said in English, then switching to Spanish with an accent. "But in the end, family is what matters. Don't let more time pass." The 3 investors said their goodbyes respectfully and left, leaving David, Daniel, and Mei Lin at the table. Mr. Tan approached hesitantly. "Mr. Sia, about the bill." "Don't worry about that now," David replied, still wiping his eyes. "I'll sort it out later." He nodded and walked away, giving them space. David looked at Mei Lin for the first time with something other than arrogance or contempt. It was gratitude. "You did in 10 minutes what I couldn't do in years," he said. "You built a bridge between my son and me." "It wasn't me, sir," Mei Lin replied. "You were the ones who decided to cross the bridge." Daniel signed more, and Mei Lin smiled as she translated. "He says he wants to know more about Camila. He wants to know what she was like." Mei Lin pulled up a chair and sat at the table for the first time, not as a waitress, but as an equal. and began to talk about her sister. She spoke about how Camila loved to draw, how she had an incredible talent for art, how she could express in images everything she couldn't say in words, how she was kind, generous, always worried about others, even when she was suffering. She dreamed of being a graphic designer, Mei Lin, signed to Daniel. She wanted to create beautiful things that made people happy. "And what did you do?" Daniel asked in signs. "I was a primary school teacher. I taught Spanish to children. I loved watching them learn, grow." "Why did you stop?" The simple question carried so much weight. Mei Lin took a deep breath before answering. "When Camila got sick, the hospital costs consumed everything. I lost the flat. I lost my job because I was absent so much to care for her. After she died, I was left with huge debts. No school wanted to hire someone with an unstable history, so I took the first job that came along." "Here?" Daniel asked. "Here," she confirmed, "for almost a year now. It's not what I dreamed for my life, but at least I pay the bills." David had remained silent throughout the conversation, just observing. Now he leaned forward. "How much do you owe?" Mei Lin felt uncomfortable with the question. "Sir, it's not just how much," he insisted. She hesitated but finally answered. 120,000 pesos for the hospital, plus the loans I took trying to save my sister." The last part came out more bitter than she intended. 3 years later, the wound was still bleeding. David took out his phone and started typing. Mei Lin was confused until her own phone vibrated with a bank notification. She opened the app automatically without thinking much. And then the world stopped. "Transfer received. 200,000 SGD. Mei Lin read the number. Once, twice, 3 times. It couldn't be real. It had to be a system error. "What? What is this?" Her voice came out choked. 120,000 to pay your debts, David explained calmly, and 80,000 more as payment for what you did today. "Sir, I can't accept this," Mei Lin said, her voice rising. "I didn't do anything to deserve it." But the words died in her throat. Her hands started trembling uncontrollably. 200,000 SGD. She looked at her phone again. That number that seemed fictitious, 200,000 SGD. It meant the debts were over. It meant the loan sharks who had chased her for 3 years would finally be out of her life. It meant she wouldn't have to live in fear of being sued, of having her salary blocked, of being humiliated by collectors. It meant freedom. She tried to speak, but couldn't. The tears came suddenly, without warning, streaming down her face. They weren't delicate tears. It was a convulsive cry of someone who had held back too much for too long. Daniel got startled and made worried signs. "She's okay," David translated his son's question, but he didn't sound sure of the answer. Mei Lin covered her face with her hands, trying to control herself, but failing. 3 years of pain, of guilt, of carrying the weight of not being able to save Camila. It all came out at once. "Sorry," she managed to say between sobs. "Sorry, it's just that I." She couldn't finish the sentence. Mr. Tan appeared with tissues, offering them with an expression of concern. Mei Lin accepted them, wiping her face, but the tears kept coming. "You don't need to apologize," David said, his voice softer than she had ever heard him speak. "I understand." "No, you don't understand," Mei Lin replied, finally managing to control her breathing a little. "This debt wasn't just money, it was proof that I failed. Every time I saw the collection notices, it was like they were telling me, you weren't good enough, you didn't do enough, you let her die." The restaurant had fallen silent again, all eyes directed towards her. "I know it's not rational," she continued, wiping her eyes. "I know I did everything I could, but carrying this debt was like carrying the guilt." And now she looked at her phone again, that number that changed everything. "Now I can breathe," she whispered. Daniel stood up and hugged Mei Lin again. This time she returned the hug tightly, crying into the shoulder of the young man who understood what it was like to carry pain others didn't see. When they finally separated, she looked at David with a gratitude that went beyond words. "Thank you," she simply said. "Thank you for giving me something I thought I would never have. Peace." David nodded, but there was discomfort in his eyes. "Don't thank me yet. I still need to ask one more favor." "About what?" Mei Lin asked, wiping away the last tears. "I have a proposal for you, but I want to be clear from the start. You don't need to accept. I've already given you the money. It's yours, regardless of what you decide now." "What kind of proposal?" "I want to hire you as an interpreter and private tutor for Daniel. A salary of 15,000 SGD a month with full benefits. You would work a few hours a day helping with studies, being a communication bridge when needed, and mainly being someone with whom he can have a real conversation." Mei Lin was speechless. You don't need to answer now, David continued. Think about it calmly. See if it's what you want. But you should know the offer is genuine. Mei Lin looked at Daniel, who was watching her with clear hope in his eyes. Then she looked at her own hands, still trembling from the emotional shock of the last few minutes. Mr. Seiya, she began slowly. I need to be honest. I'm not perfect. I have bad days. I have moments when the pain of losing my sister still paralyzes me. I might not be the ideal person you imagine. Nobody is perfect, David replied. And honestly, I prefer someone who knows pain and overcoming it than someone who only studied about it in books. I can have a few days to think, of course. But she hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to say next. But I need your encouragement, sir. I need help today, now, with something urgent. At that moment, David's phone rang. He answered quickly, and Mei Lin noticed the immediate shift in his expression. When? He asked tensely. How much time do we have? The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with David visibly more agitated. Understood. I'll arrange everything, he said before hanging up. Did something happen? Mei Lin asked. David ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. It was my lawyer. A legal process regarding an international contract just had an unfavorable first instance decision. The documents in Romanian that I need translated are crucial for the appeal. I must present the certificates to the Romanian court before 10 a.m. tomorrow. If I don't, I automatically lose the right to appeal. And with that, a 50 million SGD contract. 50 million SGD, Mei Lin repeated, surprised. It's complex. It involves international documents, certified translations, legal issues in 3 different countries. He shook his head. And my legal team just informed me they won't be able to resolve it in time. Daniel made worried signs. He asks if everything will be okay, Mei Lin translated. It will be okay, David replied, but he didn't sound convinced. It always is. But Mei Lin noticed something in his expression. It wasn't just about money. There was something more, something personal about that contract. May I ask what kind of contract it is? David hesitated before answering. It's to build a rehabilitation center for people with hearing disabilities, state-of-the-art equipment, specialized teachers, all free of charge. It would be the most advanced in all of Latin America. The revelation left Mei Lin speechless. I started this project 3 years ago, he continued, in memory of Elena. The main investor is Romanian, from Bucharest. His family has a similar history to mine. They lost someone due to a lack of medical resources. That's why he wanted to fund the project. But the contract has very specific clauses. All legal documents must be certified in Romanian before the deadline, or they lose legal validity. It's a Romanian law on international investments. If I don't submit it by tomorrow, the contract is automatically void, and all 50 million SGD in funding falls through. Daniel's eyes widened. He knew nothing about this. Were you building this in secret? Mei Lin asked. I didn't want to announce it before it was ready. I didn't want it seen as empty charity or propaganda. I wanted it to be real, functional, actually helping people. After 18 years carrying this guilt, I finally found a way to honor Elena's memory. For the first time, Mei Lin saw David as a 3-dimensional person. Not just the arrogant man who humiliated employees, but someone carrying pain and imperfectly trying to do something good. What kind of problems are preventing the contract? She asked. Documents in Romanian that need to be translated and certified before 10 a.m. tomorrow. My main translator had a family emergency, and none of the substitutes can do it in time. Mei Lin felt something strange in her chest. Romanian. Yes, the main investor is from Romania. Why? She hesitated, a part of her wanting to lie, to pretend she couldn't help. It was too risky. She hadn't practiced in years. I studied Romanian in university, she finally admitted. But sir, that was a long time ago. I don't know if I still can. You studied Romanian? David interrupted, incredulous. I did a degree specializing in Latin languages. Romanian was one of the languages in the program, but that was before Camila got sick. The admission hurt one more thing she had sacrificed that hadn't saved anyone. Do you remember enough to try? David pressed. I don't know. Maybe. I'll probably make mistakes, and if I make mistakes in legal documents, I could make everything worse instead of helping. What I propose, David said, is that you at least look at the documents, see if you can understand the basics. If you can't, I'll find another solution. But if you can, Mei Lin looked at the clock on the wall. What time is it? 11 p.m., Mr. Tan replied. And it needs to be ready when? 10 a.m. That's 9 hours, David said. It's an impossible time, Mei Lin corrected him. Complex legal documents, certified translation, review. Sir, that would normally take days. I know, but we don't have days. Daniel signed frantically. He says you are the only hope and that he believes in you, Mei Lin translated, with a half smile. Daniel's simple, pure trust in his eyes decided everything. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. I'll try, but I promise nothing. If I see I can't do it, I'll stop immediately, and you find another solution. Agreed. Agreed. David concurred, visibly relieved. While David made calls arranging the night's logistics, Mei Lin watched the interaction between him and Daniel. The father still avoided direct eye contact with his son. He still maintained a physical distance. He still had that body tension of someone uncomfortable. The emotional conversation had happened, but the real change wasn't there yet. Daniel, lie, David said out loud, completely forgetting to sign. Daniel didn't react, obviously, continuing to look at his phone. Daniel, David, repeated louder, irritation growing in his voice. Mei Lin gently touched the young man's shoulder to get his attention. When Daniel looked at her, he signed. Your father is calling you. Time to go. It was only then that David realized his mistake. He blushed visibly, looking genuinely embarrassed. Sorry, he said, then aloud again. I mean, don't teach. Mei Lin looked at him firmly. Mr. Saya, if you are truly committed to changing, you need to start signing. It's not just about conversing in emotional moments. It's about communicating in the small things of daily life. David stiffened. I know. It's just hard. I spent so long avoiding it that it became a habit. Habits can be changed, she replied, but only if you really want to. I want to, he insisted, but there was frustration in his voice. It's just going to take time. Time you have, but you need to start now. David took a deep breath and, with clumsy and clearly rusty movements, signed to Daniel. Let's go. Important work. The signs were technically correct, but completely devoid of emotion. They were the signs of someone who had learned the language, but had never used it to truly connect. Daniel nodded, but Mei Lin saw the disappointment in his eyes. He had expected more, and Mei Lin realized that David's journey would be much longer and harder than that emotional moment in the restaurant had suggested. Acknowledging the mistake was easy. Truly changing was a whole different story. At that moment, Mr. Tan approached with the restaurant owner, Mr. Eugene Chong. Mr. Sia. Mr. Chong said, I heard about the incident tonight. I'd like to apologize for any inconvenience. There was no inconvenience, David replied. In fact, your employee, Mei Lin, was exceptional. Mei Lin, David turned to her. You are fired from here, but don't worry. You are officially hired by me starting now. Mei Lin opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. I won't take no for an answer. You need a job. I need you. It's decided. And then the three of them left. The arrogant millionaire who still had much to learn, his invisible son who was finally being seen, and the waitress who had just proven that no one is ever just one thing. The night would be long. And what none of them knew was that those documents hid a secret that would change everything, a secret that would prove some coincidences, our destiny in disguise. David's car was exactly what Mei Lin would expect from a millionaire. Luxurious, silent, with leather seats that probably cost more than her annual salary. She sat in the back seat next to Daniel, while David drove with visible tension in his shoulders. The adrenaline from what had happened in the restaurant still coursed through Mei Lin's veins. She couldn't fully process it. In a few hours, she had confronted one of the most powerful men in the city, proved her worth in front of everyone, received 200,000 SGD, and was now on her way to his mansion to save a multi-million-dollar project. It was too surreal to be real. Daniel gently touched her arm, getting her attention. When she looked, he signed, "Thank you for not leaving." "Why would I leave?" she signed back. "Because most people leave when they find out what my father is really like, when they realize I'm just an inconvenient problem." The sadness in Daniel's hands broke Mei Lin's heart. "You are not a problem, and your father is trying. Not very well yet, but he's trying." "You think so?" Mei Lin looked at David, who was driving in silence, clearly lost in thought. "I think he's very scared. Scared of failing you, like he felt he failed Elena. And sometimes, when people are scared, they pull away instead of getting closer. Was it like that with you and Camila?" The question took Mei Lin by surprise. "No, with Camila, I always tried to be close." But she hesitated, deciding to be honest. "There were moments when I failed. Moments when I was so tired, so exhausted, that I couldn't give her all the attention she deserved. And I hate myself for that to this day." "She forgave you." "She never blamed me. but I blame myself. I think that's the difference. Daniel nodded, processing. Then, he signed more. My father carries guilt too. I see it in his eyes. He hates himself every time he looks at me. Maybe it's time for him to learn to forgive himself, and maybe you need to help him with that. How? By showing him you don't blame him, that there's still time to build something together. The conversation was interrupted by David. We're here. The iron gate swung open, revealing an immense mansion. Maylin felt small before this display of wealth. Impeccable gardens, strategic lighting, modern architecture. It was a completely different world from hers. They entered through the main door, and Maylin was impressed by the size of the foyer. Everything was large, expensive, flawless, but also cold. There were no photos on the walls, no personal items. It was more like a luxury hotel than a home. My office is on the second floor, David said. All the documents are there. They went up a wide staircase, and Maylin noticed that Daniel walked as if he were a visitor, not a resident. He touched the walls hesitantly, looked at the paintings as if seeing them for the first time. The office was huge, with a glass wall offering a view of the illuminated city. There were shelves full of books, trophies, framed diplomas. But what struck Maylin the most was what was missing. Not a single photo of Daniel. She saw when Daniel realized it too. The young man looked around, searching, and when he found no evidence of his own existence there, his expression closed off completely. Mr. Sayer, Maylin said carefully, may I ask why there are no photos of Daniel here? David stopped arranging papers on his desk and froze. I didn't think about it. How could you not think about it? This is your office, the place you spend most of your time, and you don't have a single photo of your son. I said I didn't think about it. There are so many things to think about, to resolve, that photos weren't a priority. But he is your son. He should be the highest priority. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel was standing near the door, watching the argument, tears already running down his face. David ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling with something internal. When he spoke again, his voice came out broken. I didn't put photos of him here because it hurts too much to look. It hurts. Why? Because every time I look at him, I see Elena. I see everything I couldn't do for her, and I'm so afraid of failing again. He couldn't finish the sentence. Maylin moved closer to him. Then it's time to stop running from that pain and start facing it, because while you're running, you're losing your son. I don't know how to do it differently. Start small. Put one photo of him here. Just one. David looked around the office as if truly seeing for the first time the glaring absence of his son. I don't even know if I have photos of him. You do, Daniel signed, moving closer. Maylin translated. He says you took photos of him when he was little, before Elena passed away. They are in boxes in storage. If you know that, Daniel. Daniel nodded. I found them by chance, years ago. You took pictures of us together before everything got difficult. The revelation hit David like a punch. Daniel, but whatever he was going to say was interrupted by the doorbell ringing. The three of them looked at each other, confused. It was almost midnight. Who could it be? David went to the intercom, and his face paled when he saw who was at the gate. Who is it? Maylin asked. Valerie Ang, my ex-colleague. What does she want at this hour? Nothing good. He pressed the button. Valerie? It's almost midnight. What do you want? The female voice coming from the intercom was cold, calculating. Open the gate, David. We need to talk about the center project and about some documents I discovered. What documents? The ones your sister Elena left. The ones that explain exactly where the money to start your empire came from. Are you opening or not? David was visibly shaken. He looked at Maylin, then at Daniel, clearly torn. Don't open it, Maylin said. If she has something important, she can talk on the phone tomorrow. She's not going to give up. And if she really has documents from Elena, then she can come during business hours, not in the middle of the night to intimidate you. David took a deep breath and pressed the button again. Valerie, come back tomorrow. Business hours. You'll regret this, David? I will personally make sure the Romanian investors know everything about Elena, about you, about the real origins of your money. There's nothing to know. I built my company with honest work. Oh yeah? Then explain why Elena left an inheritance of 3 million SGD to you. Where would a woman who was hospitalized her whole life get that money? The question landed like a bomb. Maylin saw David close his eyes, clearly struck. I'll give you 48 hours to offer me a 20% stake in the project, Valerie continued. Or I'll hand over everything I have to the press, and I guarantee your reputation will go down along with your project. The call dropped. David stood there, hands trembling. "Where did that money come from?" Mei Lin asked gently. "I don't know," he admitted. "Elena left an account in my name. I discovered it after she died. The money was there with a letter saying, 'Use it to do good.' I never questioned it. I thought it was her savings, insurance payouts, something like that. And if it's not, then my entire project is built on a lie, and Valerie will use that to destroy me." Daniel signed urgently, and Mei Lin translated. "He says it doesn't matter where the money came from. What matters is what you are doing with it now." "Daniel, it's not that simple." "Yes, it is," Mei Lin interrupted. "He's right. Valerie can threaten. She can try to tarnish your reputation. But in the end, what counts is that you are building something that will help hundreds of people. That's what matters. Don't you understand? If it comes out that the money has a dubious origin, the investors will flee. The government can block licenses, everything falls apart. Then we'll find the truth," Mei Lin said, with determination. "Before Valerie can use that against you, there must be bank documents, records, something to explain where that money came from." "Where?" "Here, in Elena's belongings that you kept, in the boxes Daniel mentioned." David looked at his son. "You know where they are?" Daniel nodded and signed. "I'll show you." The three of them went down to the mansion's basement. It was a huge space, organized with shelves packed with labeled boxes. Daniel went straight to a specific section, pointing to several boxes marked Elena Personal. They started opening one after another. There were clothes, books, sketchbooks, with drawings, letters Elena had written but never sent, childhood photos. Of happy moments before the illness worsened, David picked up a photo of Elena smiling while holding an ice cream cone. "About 10 years old here," he murmured, before everything collapsed. "What happened?" Mei Lin asked. "Our parents wouldn't accept her deafness. They wanted to hide her from the world out of shame, and the more they isolated her, the more she shut down until she couldn't go on." Daniel touched his father's shoulder, a simple but powerful gesture. David looked at him, and for the first time, he truly saw his son not as a painful reminder of Elena, but as his own person, with his own fears and hopes. "You will never go through what Elena went through," David signed to Daniel, his movements clumsy but sincere. "I promise. I will be different. How can I trust that? Because I will start now. Today, not tomorrow, not next week." Mei Lin continued searching through the boxes and found a folder of bank documents. She opened it and began reading bank statements, transfers, regular deposits over the years. "I found something," she said. Elena was receiving monthly deposits from a company called Aurora Investments. They started when she was 18 and continued until her death. "Aurora Investments," David frowned. "I've never heard of it. There's an address here and a contact name. Dr. Marcus Tan. Marcus Tan was her psychiatrist. What would he have to do with an investment company?" Mei Lin continued reading. "It seems Elena was a shareholder. But how? With what money?" It was Daniel who found the answer. He was looking through an old notebook of Elena's and signed urgently. "He found something," Mei Lin said. Daniel showed the notebook. It was drawings, hundreds of incredibly detailed, professional drawings, and an attached letter. "Dear David, if you are reading this, it means I've passed. I want you to know that the money I leave is clean, honest, and the fruit of my only talent. Dr. Tan helped me sell my drawings to design companies. For years I worked in secret creating illustrations, logos, characters. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to prove that I could be productive, that I had value. The money is yours. Use it to do the good I couldn't do. With love, Elena." The silence that followed was absolute. David picked up the letter with trembling hands, reading and rereading, tears falling freely. "She was working all the time," he whispered. "All this time I thought she was just a patient, but she was creating, producing, living. And you never knew," Mei Lin finished softly. "Because I never asked. I never truly cared. I only saw the illness. I didn't see her." Daniel signed, and Mei Lin translated. "He says you can still do it differently with him. You can still get to know him for real. There is still time." David looked at his son, and finally, he did what he should have done years ago. He hugged Daniel. A real, tight hug, loaded with years of regret and renewed hope. "Forgive me," he signed as he hugged. "Forgive me for all the lost years, for all the times I made you feel invisible, for not being the father you deserved." Daniel cried into his shoulder, returning the hug tightly. They weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of liberation. Mei Lin watched the scene, wiping her own eyes. This was what Camila would have wanted her to do. Help other families, not make the same mistakes, not waste precious time with fear and guilt. When father and son finally separated, David picked up Elena's letter again. This solves the problem with Valerie. I can prove the money is clean. And the contract with the Romanians. Maylin remembered. The documents. With all this emotion, I completely forgot. They looked at the clock. 1 a.m. 9 hours until the deadline. Let's go, Maylin said with determination. There's still time. They returned to the office. David spread all the documents over the desk. There were many pages. All in Romanian. All with technical and legal terms. Can you really translate all this? Doubt was clear in his voice. Maylin looked at the papers, then at Daniel, then at David. She thought of Camila, of Elena, of all the people who would be helped by the center. She thought of the promise she had made. I don't know, she admitted honestly, but I'll try for you, for Daniel, for all the people who need this center. She sat at the desk and started reading. The words in Romanian came slowly at first, but little by little, the language started to return. It was like rediscovering an old song, difficult at first, but the melody eventually returned. David and Daniel stayed in the office with her in respectful silence. Sometimes she asked technical questions. Other times she asked for an opinion on terminology. The three of them worked together, united by a common purpose. At 3 a.m., Maylin was on page 25. Her head ached, her eyes burned, but she continued. She couldn't give up. She wouldn't give up. It was when Daniel gently touched her shoulder and signed. You need to rest. You won't be able to finish if you burn out. There's no time to rest. Yes, there is. 15 minutes. A coffee, something to renew your energy. Maylin knew he was right. She stood up, stretched her aching body, and the three of them went down to the kitchen. It was a huge modern kitchen, with every imaginable appliance, but also empty, with no sign that anyone actually cooked there. David made coffee and brought some fruit. They sat at the kitchen table, a moment of pause in the middle of the chaos. May I ask a question? Maylin asked. Sure. Why is this so important to you? The center isn't just about Elena, is it? David took a sip of coffee before answering. It's about redemption, about doing something good to compensate for all the years I wasted being an arrogant idiot, about leaving a legacy that isn't just money, and about giving hope to families like ours. Daniel signed. Exactly, Maylin translated. There are so many parents like me who are afraid, who don't know how to cope, who make terrible mistakes with their children. And there are so many children like you, Daniel, who feel alone, invisible, as if they have no worth. I want to create a place where both can find help. It's a beautiful dream, Maylin said. It is, and I won't let Valerie destroy it. I won't let fear win again. They finished the coffee and returned to the office. Maylin immersed herself in the documents again, now with renewed energy. The hours passed. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Daniel fell asleep on the office sofa. David paced anxiously, trying not to pressure her. At 7 a.m., Maylin finished the last page. She was trembling with exhaustion, but she had done it. 50 pages of complex legal documents translated from Romanian to Spanish. Done, her hoarse voice announced. David rushed to her. Are you sure? Is everything correct? It is. It won't be perfect, but it's precise enough for what they need. He took the translated pages, skimming them quickly, checking. Then he looked at her with an expression of pure admiration. You are incredible, he said. Simply, I just did what needed to be done. You did much more than that. You gave me back my son. You saved my project. He stopped, searching for the right words. You reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. Maylin smiled tiredly but happily. Now you need to run. There are 3 hours until the deadline. The documents need to be certified and sent. I've already called the notary. They are waiting for me, and the lawyer will personally take them to the investors. He took the documents and prepared to leave, but stopped at the door. Maylin, regardless of what happens, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It will be fine, she said with conviction. Everything will be fine. David ran out. Maylin stayed in the office with Daniel still sleeping on the sofa. She looked out the window, watching the sun rise over the city. She had entered that night as a desperate waitress. She was leaving as someone with purpose again, someone who had made a difference. And for the first time since Camila died, Maylin felt she was on the right path. Maylin woke up to the sun hitting her face. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the memories returned. David's mansion, the entire night translating documents, the exhaustion that finally overcame her. She was lying on the office sofa, covered with a soft blanket. Daniel was sitting in a nearby armchair, drawing on his tablet. When he noticed she was awake, he smiled and signed. Good morning. You slept 3 hours. Mei Lin sat up, her body protesting with every movement. What time is it? 10:15. My father hasn't returned yet. Panic struck her like lightning. 10:15. The deadline was 10 a.m. Did he manage to submit it on time? Daniel took his phone and showed her a message. Document submitted at 9:47. Investors analyzing now. Back soon. D.S. The relief made Mei Lin slump back onto the sofa. We did it. We really did it. She thought of the overtime, Mr. Tan never paid her. The tips the rich customers never left. All the small humiliations she had endured month after month, with 200,000 SGD in her account. All that now seemed so insignificant, so distant. She was free. You did it, Daniel corrected her. Without you, none of this would have happened. Mei Lin shook her head. It wasn't just me. Your father finally decided to fight for what matters. And you. You were the reason none of us gave up. Daniel blushed slightly, but there was genuine happiness in his eyes. Can I show you something? Of course. He turned the tablet towards her. It was an incredibly detailed digital drawing. It showed 3 people sitting at a table, working together. It was possible to recognize Mei Lin, David, and Daniel. The lighting was soft, the expressions focused yet serene. There was something profoundly beautiful and hopeful in that image. You drew this today, Daniel, she signed. While you were working, I wanted to capture the moment. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. The words hit Mei Lin deeply. You have so much talent. Just like Elena did. You think so? I'm sure. These drawings are professional. Have you ever thought about doing something with this? I always wanted to. He hesitated before continuing. But my father always said art wasn't a serious career, that I needed to focus on practical things. And what do you want to do? I want to be a graphic designer, create beautiful things, make people happy through images, he signed, hesitating before continuing, like Elena did. Mei Lin smiled. Then that's what you must do. And I'm sure your father will support you, especially now that he knows about Elena's work. You really think so? I'm sure. At that moment, they heard the front door open, hurried footsteps on the stairs. David entered the office, his expression illuminated. We got it, he said, almost shouting. The investors approved. The contract was signed. The center is going to be built. Mei Lin stood up, still dizzy from sleep, but feeling joy explode in her chest. Seriously, they really approved? Approved. They said the translation was flawless, that the documents were perfect. The project starts in 3 months. He took a deep breath, still processing everything. And you won't believe this. Even Ricardo Dominguez, the restaurant owner who shoved you last night, called me this morning. He heard the story from the press and wants to donate to the center. He said he was ashamed of how he treated you. Daniel jumped off the sofa and hugged his father. It was a spontaneous, natural hug without the hesitation of the previous days. David hugged him back tightly, and Mei Lin saw tears in both their eyes. And Valerie? She asked when father and son separated. David's expression darkened. She showed up at the lawyer's office this morning. She tried to intimidate the investors with allegations about Elena's money. And then I showed them the documents you found. Elena's letter, the bank statements, the contracts with the design company. I proved every cent was earned honestly through her work. How did she react? She went furious, threatened to sue, cause a scene, everything. But the investors didn't pay attention to her. They saw she was just trying to sabotage the project out of personal revenge. So, it's over. She's going to leave you alone, David sighed. I'm not sure. People like Valerie don't give up easily, but at least now she has nothing concrete to use against me. As if summoned by the mention, the doorbell rang. They all looked at each other tensely. David went to the intercom. Who is it? It's me, Valerie Ang. Her voice resonated, cold as always. I need to speak with you personally. We have nothing to talk about. Yes, we do. Please, David. Just 5 minutes, and I'll come alone. No threats, no games. There was something different in her tone. It wasn't the calculating and aggressive voice from last night. There was tiredness, defeat. David looked at Mei Lin and Daniel questioningly. Mei Lin shrugged. Your decision. He took a deep breath. Fine. 5 minutes. They went down to the main hall. David opened the door, and Valerie entered. She looked different from last night. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled. Her makeup was smeared. She looked like someone who hadn't slept. Thank you for seeing me, her voice said, without the previous arrogance. You have 5 minutes. Valerie looked around, saw Mei Lin and Daniel, and seemed to hesitate. Can you talk in front of them? David asked. I have no secrets with these people. Okay. She breathed deep. I came to apologize. The silence that followed was one of pure shock. Apologies? David repeated, incredulous. You spend the night threatening me. You try to destroy my project, and now you want to apologize? I know it makes no sense. But after I left the lawyer's office today, I kept thinking. She stopped, visibly struggling with her emotions. I kept thinking about how much I became a horrible person. Now you want pity? No, I just need you to understand. Valerie sat down without waiting for an invitation. When you fired me 2 years ago, I was destroyed. Not just professionally, but personally. That job was everything to me. And when I lost it, I lost my identity along with it. You were fired for diverting resources, David recalled coldly. I never diverted anything, she said, looking him straight in the eyes. I swear. I know you found irregularities in the accounting, but it wasn't me. I tried to prove it, but you had already decided I was guilty. Valerie, let me finish, please. She wiped her eyes. I spent the last 2 years obsessed with proving I was right, getting revenge, making you pay. And in that process, I became exactly the person you accused me of being. A liar, manipulative, vengeful. Mei Lin watched the woman closely. There was genuine pain there, but also years of accumulated bitterness. What do you want from me? David asked. Nothing. I don't want anything. I just came to say you won, she swallowed hard, and that the center project is beautiful. Elena would be proud. You knew Elena? I did. I worked with you for 5 years, remember? I saw the photos in your old office. I heard you talk about her a few times. I know how much she meant to you. David fell silent, processing. I also came to return this, Valerie continued, taking an envelope from her bag. Documents I took from the archive when I still worked with you. They were personal letters from Elena. I was going to use them for blackmail. But, she shook her head. I can't do that. I can't be that vile. She placed the envelope on the table and stood up. That's all. Sorry for everything. Truly. Valerie, wait. David called her when she was heading for the door. She turned hopefully. If you really want to do things differently, if you want to change, the center is going to need lawyers, specialists in international law. I can't give you a stake, but I can hire you to work on the project. Valerie's eyes filled with tears. Would you do that? After everything I did? Everyone deserves a second chance. I'm having mine with Daniel. You can have yours too. It was a gesture of generosity that took everyone by surprise, including Valerie herself. She stood there, clearly unsure how to react. I don't know what to say. You say you accept, and that this time you will work. Honestly, I accept, and I swear it will be different. Valerie left shortly after, leaving the envelope on the table. When the door closed, Mei Lin looked at David with admiration. That was very generous of you, or very foolish, David admitted. But I learned something in the last few hours. I learned that holding grudges makes us suffer more, and that everyone is fighting battles we don't know about. Daniel signed, and Mei Lin translated. He says you are becoming a better person and that he is proud of you. David looked at his son, emotion clear on his face. And I am proud of you, of the man you are becoming, of the incredible artist you are. You know about my drawings. I saw what you showed Mei Lin, and I want to see more. I want to know your dreams, your plans, everything. No more pretending you don't exist. Father and son hugged again, and Mei Lin felt her heart clench with emotion. This was exactly the kind of moment Camila would have loved to witness. David picked up the envelope. Valerie had left and opened it. Inside were several handwritten letters from Elena. He began reading the first one, and his expression changed to something between sadness and joy. What does it say? Mei Lin asked. They are letters Elena wrote for me but never sent. She recorded everything, her fears, her hopes, her dreams. And in all of them, she talks about one thing, family. He continued reading, his voice catching. Dear David, I know you're afraid of having children, afraid they'll be like me, that they'll suffer as I suffered. But don't be afraid, because having someone who loves you, even if they're imperfect, is better than being alone. If you ever have children, love them unconditionally. Don't make the mistakes our parents made with me. Tears fell freely down David's face. She knew, he whispered. She knew I was going to be afraid and tried to prepare me even after she left. She loved you very much, Mei Lin said softly. I wasted so much time being afraid to honor that memory, but no more. He looked at Daniel. No more. Daniel signed, and Mei Lin translated with a smile. He asks if he can paint a mural at the center. A tribute to Elena and Camila. To all the people who feel invisible. Would you do that? David asked, clearly moved. Yes, if you let me, of course I'll let you. It would be an honor. The three of them stood there in the room, just absorbing the moment. So much had changed in less than 24 hours. So much pain had been exposed and begun to heal. You know, David said, breaking the silence. When I woke up yesterday morning, I had no idea my life would completely change. None of us did, Maylin agreed. And now? What do we do now? Now, Maylin said, standing up. You are going to take photos with your son, lots of photos, and you are going to put them all in your office. All of them to never forget what really matters. Daniel took out his phone and approached his father. First photo, he signed. David put his arm around his son's shoulders, both smiling genuinely for the camera. Maylin took the photo, and when she showed it to them, she saw she had captured something special. It wasn't just a photo, it was the record of a new beginning. Perfect, David said, looking at the image. I'm going to print it and put it on my desk to see it every day and remember what I almost lost and what you gained. Maylin finished. David's phone rang. He answered, and Maylin watched his expression change from confusion to surprise, then to pure joy. Seriously, are you sure? I see. Yes, I'll arrange everything. Thank you very much. He hung up and looked at Maylin and Daniel with shining eyes. It was the main investor from Bucharest. Not only did he approve the project, he wants to double the investment. He says he was so impressed with Elena's story, with her drawings, with everything, that he wants to make the center even bigger. Bigger? How? Maylin asked. Big enough to serve not only people with hearing disabilities but all kinds of disabilities. He wants to transform it into a complete rehabilitation center, the largest in all of Latin America. The magnitude of it hit them like a wave. It wasn't just about Elena anymore. Now it was about thousands of people who would be helped. Elena made this happen, David whispered, looking at the letters still in his hand. Even after she passed, she continues to make a difference. As you are doing, Maylin said. And you're going to keep doing it. Daniel signed. We need to celebrate. You're right, David agreed. Maylin, will you have dinner with us tonight? Truly. This time not as an employee, but as family. The word family made Maylin feel warmth in her chest. It would be an honor. Perfect. And after dinner, we go to the storage. Daniel, you're going to show me all your drawings, all of them. And we're going to talk about your plans for the future, about graphic design, about your dreams, about everything I should have asked years ago. Daniel hugged his father, and Maylin saw that both were crying. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of hope, of starting over, of finally finding the way to each other. And Maylin knew that wherever Camila was, she was smiling, because the promise had been fulfilled. No one else was invisible. No one else was alone. The morning sun bathed the modern building in golden light. Maylin stood on the pavement, looking up, still unable to fully believe this was real. Huge letters shone on the facade. Elena and Camila Centre for Rehabilitation and Integral Development. Tears filled her eyes for the 100th time that week. Seeing her sister's name there, permanent, honored, was more than she had ever dreamed. It's beautiful, isn't it? David approached from behind, also admiring the building. 5 floors, state-of-the-art equipment, a team of 100 professionals, and it all starts today. It's surreal, Maylin admitted. It still feels like a dream. Do you think 6 months ago I was humiliating you in a restaurant? I do. And do you think I was thinking about giving up on everything? David looked at her seriously. Thank you for not doing it, for seeing something in me that I didn't see, for giving Daniel and me a chance. You gave yourselves the chance. I just opened the door, but without you, we never would have crossed. Daniel ran out of the building, signing animatedly. Come see, the mural is ready. The two followed him to the main lobby, and there, taking up an entire wall of the entrance hall, was Daniel's masterpiece. A gigantic hand-painted mural showing dozens of people of all ages with different disabilities, all connected by lines of light. In the center, 2 female figures, clearly Elena and Camila, extended their hands as if blessing everyone around. Daniel, Maylin whispered, speechless. It's perfect. It took me 3 months, he signed proudly. I wanted to capture the essence of what this place means. That no one is alone, that everyone is seen. David placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Your aunt would be so proud of you, of the artist you've become, of the man you are, and of the son you finally got to know for real, he added. In the last few months, the relationship between father and son had completely transformed. David learned to sign fluently. They spent hours talking about art, about dreams, about life. They had dinner as a family every night. They did activities together on weekends. They were finally a real family. Folks, it's almost time. Valerie appeared. Yes, the same Valerie. David had hired her as the center's legal coordinator. The press is arriving. The first families too. Mei Lin took a deep breath, adjusting her dress. She was the director of communications and community relations for the center, now responsible for connecting families with resources, bringing in specialists from other countries, ensuring no one was left behind due to lack of information. Outside, a crowd had formed. TV cameras, journalists, hopeful families, local authorities, but most importantly were the ordinary people. Parents holding children, curious youths, elderly people seeking help. David stepped onto the small stage, set up in front of the building. Mei Lin and Daniel stood by his side. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice firm but emotional. "Today is a day I dreamed of for years, but thought would never come. The inauguration of the Elena and Camila Center." Applause resonated through the crowd. This center is named after two extraordinary women who never had the chance to see the impact they would have on the world. My sister Elena, who suffered from isolation and misunderstanding, but through her art and her love, left a legacy that today transforms into hope. And Camila, the sister of the extraordinary woman beside me, who also passed away too soon, but whose spirit lives on in every person we will help here. Mei Lin wiped away her tears in silence. "But I want to be honest with you all," David continued. "This place almost didn't exist, not for lack of money or resources, but for lack of something much more important: humanity. 6 months ago, I was a different man, arrogant, cruel, blind to what really mattered. I treated people like objects, judged worth by appearance, and, worse yet, I made my own son feel invisible because I lacked the courage to face my own fears." Daniel held his father's hand, a silent gesture of support, until one night in a restaurant, I made the mistake that changed everything. I publicly humiliated a waitress. I made a cruel joke at my son's expense, and I thought it was fine because I had money and power. He looked at Mei Lin. But that waitress did something no one had ever done before. She showed me I was wrong, not with anger or revenge, but with dignity and competence. She proved that I had completely underestimated who she was, and in the process, she forced me to look in the mirror and see the monster I had become. Several people in the audience were crying now. Mei Lin was a teacher, a language specialist, one of the most qualified people I've ever met, but life had hit her so hard that she was working as a waitress to survive. And I, the idiot I was, only saw the uniform, not the person. He turned completely towards her. "Mei Lin, you saved more than a project. You gave me back my son. You taught me that value is not in position or money, but in character and humanity. Everything this center represents, everything it will do, exists because you refused to give up when I gave you every reason to." "David," she whispered, tears streaming freely. "For everyone here," he turned back to the crowd. "She left a lesson I learned the hardest way. Never judge someone by appearances. The waitress might be a teacher. The janitor might be an engineer. The person you treat as invisible might be exactly who you need to change your life." The silence was absolute. Then someone started clapping, then another, and another, until the entire crowd was standing, applauding loudly. Daniel approached the microphone. For the first time, he was going to speak publicly, through Mei Lin. He began signing, and Mei Lin translated, her voice tight. "My name is Daniel. I spent 16 years feeling invisible until I met Mei Lin. She showed me that being different is not being less. She showed me that I have a voice, even without spoken words. Today we inaugurate this center, in memory of two women who suffered from invisibility, but also in celebration of all the people who refused to let others be invisible." The ribbon was cut, the doors opened, the first families entered, welcomed by a smiling and prepared team. Mei Lin watched everything when she felt two presences beside her. David and Daniel, father and son united. "Thank you," David said simply. "For everything." "Don't thank me," she replied. "Thank yourself for having the courage to change." Daniel signed. "Family, family," David confirmed in sign language. "Family," Mei Lin repeated. The three stood there watching people enter the center, each with their story, their pain, their hope. And now everyone had a place that saw them, heard them, valued them. Mei Lin thought of that night in the restaurant, how she had lowered her head, red with shame, with everyone laughing at her, how she had thought of giving up on everything, and she looked at where she was now. the director of a center that would change thousands of lives, part of a family she chose, not by blood, but by love, honoring her sister's memory in a way she never imagined possible. Camila, she whispered to the sky, promise kept. No one else will be invisible, not if I can help it. And somewhere, she was sure, Camila was smiling because the promise had been fulfilled. No one else would be invisible,